Welcome to the Veterans Archives podcast, where we honor our nation's veterans by preserving and sharing their stories. You can also hear Veterans Archives on Wreaths Across America Radio every Thursday at 5 p.m. To learn more about our mission, watch veteran interviews, or find out how to record a veteran story, please visit veteransarchives.org. And if you or a veteran you know needs support or resources, we encourage you to download the Battle Buddy app from vetlifetoday.org. Today is Tuesday, March 31st, 2026. We're talking with Dave Lewis, who served the United States Army. So good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Bill.
Thanks for taking the time out to do this uncomfortable interview with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So we'll start out very simple. When and where were you born?
I was born in Flint in May 26, 1980. And I grew up in the Fenton area. So my mom and dad built a home down in Fenton off White Lake Road, Running Lake-ish area. I think we moved there in like 1981 or 1982. And my mom still lives there, as a matter of fact.
Okay. So you pretty much grew up in that house then? You didn't move anyplace else or go anywhere else?
Correct.
All right. Any brothers and sisters?
I do. I've got a younger brother. He's 18 months younger than me, Justin. No military service there. He's a geothermal guy. But we're closer now than we were, growing up.
Yeah. Was he that annoying little brother? Or were you the annoying older brother?
Yeah, I'm sure, depending on whose perspective, right? We didn't see eye to eye for many years. My dad we got in a pretty bad car accident in I'm gonna mess up these dates, but
that's okay.
Call it 87, 88, something like that. So we were just little. Our car had run out of gas on the side of the road, old Chevette. And my dad was in for, you put the gas in, you got to put the gas in the carburetor. So he was out front doing that, and we got hit by a drunk driver from behind on US 23. So that was 87. And then things just kind of progressively got not worse. Like, my childhood was great. I don't want to sound like it was bad or anything. But there was that accident. Which shattered both of his legs, from the waist down. And kind of as he was, recovering and rehabbing from that, he was having some vision problems and some other stuff. Come to find out, he had a brain tumor. They went out to, my mom and him went out to the Mayo Clinic. That was probably 90 or 91. And he degrad like real fast. Yeah. So kind of had, there was that. Now, all through it, like, my mom has been our number one fan forever. Still is, right? Bit over the top, but always there and great. But we did kind of grow up, without a father figure in a sense, right? He survived. He lived with my grandmother for a little bit, then with my aunt, and then we lived us. My grandmother, my aunt, then ended up in assisted living, and he didn't pass until when my son was about a year old, so 2006.
So he survived this car wreck, survived this brain tumor, and went on to live all those years.
He did.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yep. But just at kind of a reduced mental capacity. Yeah. But I think, back to my brother, I always felt like he took it probably a little bit harder. Maybe he was just because he was a little bit younger. But yeah, so we just, we kind of struggled to get along. But we get along good now.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, he's got 2 twin boys that are 8 years old. And so
what kinds of things did you do as a kid?
I was into sports. I wrestled, I played football, I played baseball, very active childhood. Where I grew up on Karma Road, like right down the street, there was what's Running Lake Court, and right down there's, Eric Walagora, Jared Hicks, Stephanie Ward, all my age, like kind of right in a row. My best friends to this day, Eric and Jared, still live on Running Lake, just on the other side. Their mother and father, live on that same street. But it was great. A lot of my friends from when I was young, still friends to this day. So real blessed in that sense. started in Fenton schools, graduated from Fenton schools, so never went through any, no transitions like that. Real good in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that can be a blessing and a curse sometimes, right?
True.
Because everyone knows you.
True.
And yeah. And so what did your mom do?
She was a nurse.
Okay.
Yep. She was a nurse for, my goodness, 40 years or whatever. I don't.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. And what about your dad?
He was at General Motors before. I'm not sure if he ever went back to work after the accident.
Yeah.
But he was a General Motors guy. They both, grew up in Flint. One of them went to Southwestern, one to Northwestern, which I couldn't even tell you. I think both those schools are closed down in Flint now, but they had known each other kind of most of their lives. And
yeah. So talk to me a little bit about high school. What was that like for you?
High school was I had a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I really did. I was a good enough student in a sense that I really didn't, I would get my books at the beginning of the year and put them in my locker, and then I would get them out at the end of the year to turn in. I just didn't really have to apply myself that well, and I would still get pretty good grades. But I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think right before my graduation, my mom said to me, high school is probably going to be the best time of your life. And at the time I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. But looking back, I have those great memories as well.
Yeah. Just through, like I said, through, football and wrestling and baseball and all that stuff. Just looking back, I had a lot of fun, probably a little bit too much fun. Obviously I'm still trying to finish college now. And, had I applied myself a little bit better back then, I might be, in a different position today.
Right. So when you graduated, did you discover that college just wasn't for you?
Yeah.
Or did you try college at first?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I went to Mott Community College. Let me back up. I got a job in construction. I was working construction, and then I was going to just go to Mott Community College. At the time, it was just, I had such a hard time being in school and being in class, and I thought I was making, so much money. I was working on whether it was a framing crew or I poured a lot of concrete and stuff like that. And for like 18-year-old kid, I think I was probably making $10 an hour.
Oh yeah, big money back then.
Big money. Like, I don't need school. I got, I got it made. And I don't think I got any credits from Mott at the time.
Yeah.
Just working, and I did that for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I graduated in 98, and then I did that right up until, fall of 2001.
Okay. So what happened the fall of 2001?
So it's kind of all tied together. I mean, September 11th was obviously the major event.
Right.
But so the weekend before that, Labor Day weekend, we had all went out after work on a Friday, me and the framing crew I was on, celebrating, having some drinks, whatever. There was an older guy, he, used to just kind of pick at me, and, he was an asshole. So we had a few beers, things kind of escalated, we got into it outside. He whooped my ass out back of that bar. I thought I had him kind of with a cheap shot that he didn't see coming, and it was. So, anyways, show up Tuesday morning after Labor Day, and the foreman is there to greet us. Gives us our checks. It's like, hey, you need to head down to the Union Hall. Like, you're not welcome on this crew anymore. So that was like September 7th or 8th, something like that.
Right.
And so then just a couple of days later, September 11th happens, and it felt like kind of everything was pointing me in a direct, like, you should probably do something, like you just did. It was embarrassing, right? Like getting kind of, fired, and
right.
Plus the kind of the shame of, you got your ass kicked in front of the whole carpenter crew. That's not,
Got an ass whooping and a firing all in like a very short period of time.
Yeah. Yep. So then September 11th occurred, and I just felt like, and this is like this is my chance to, do something, give something. Right. So let's see how I ended up in the National Guard though. So I had reached out to a couple Army recruiter. I think he missed like the first or maybe the first 2 appointments with me. And then I learned that right in Pontiac there was a recruiter there, and there was, all these military vehicles there. And I was like, Mom, I'm going to go stop by there and talk to this guy. I went in there, the whole recruiting thing. He's showing you the cool ass videos of like all this cool shit MPs do. And I took the ASVAB and I enlisted, shortly thereafter. So,
wow.
Yeah. And that was right. He's like, oh, you can just be right here in Pontiac, and this is what they do, and here's the things you can do here. I was like, oh yeah, that sounds good. And at the time too, the college benefits and all that stuff, I was like, oh, because I'll give college another try because I'm a little bit older and all that, right? But let me go kind of do this first. And it just, so that's how I ended up in the 1775th MP Company in Pontiac.
And so here's something a lot of people don't know, and I'm embarrassed to say this. I did not know this when I went into the National Guard, but you could just go into the National Guard. I always thought, well, you did active duty somewhere and then you came into the National Guard. That's how I thought it worked.
Yep.
Even for years while I was in the Guard. I didn't find out till later on. You could just join the Guard. I wish I'd have known that. Mm-hmm. So you joined the National Guard. How long were you from, the time you enlisted to the time you actually went to basic?
So I enlisted, it was probably October by the time I got in. Because you have the ASVAB and the physical and all that type stuff. So I joined in October, and I think I was done by the summer of the following year. Okay. So I probably, February, March timeframe is when I went off to training down to Leonard Wood. Mm-hmm. And I was back, late summer of 2002.
Okay. All right. So talk to me about getting to basic training. Where'd you take your basic training at?
Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Oh, yay.
It was, looking back, it was one of the coolest, greatest experiences of my entire life. But the first day or two, and I used to tell, I would tell kids this all the time. We'll get into my time in recruiting, obviously, but I would tell, the first couple of days were tough, and you're like, can I cuss or no?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I have a hard time sometimes, but
we're all in the military.
If it's real bad, you'll just edit it out. All right.
I'll just bleep it. We'll figure it out.
Shit, where was I at?
So you tell kids like that.
First couple of days, yeah, just miserable. They jam you on that cattle car with all these bags, and they're just screaming, and I remember sitting in like what seemed to me like a gymnasium floor, mm-hmm. Your bags all laid out, and all these drill sergeants yelling, and I was like, oh, I made a mistake. Like this, I shouldn't be here. This is like no way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think I was almost like too afraid to even speak up and try to quit, So the first couple of days I was like, holy shit, I made a mistake.
Right. Then did you kind of get into a groove?
That was great.
Yeah.
It was great. I would say by day 3 or 4, it was, I really, really, really enjoyed it,
Do you think your time on a construction crew helped you assimilate into boot camp? I mean, just the toughness of people around you.
I think looking back, I think like wrestling and sports and team activities, I think that's part of it. And mm-hmm. Because the things you have when you're on a team and you're surrounded by like-minded people and things like you just kind of feel that like connection, that draw. And so I think after I left school and after the sports were over and all that, I probably missed a lot of that, and then you get to a construction site and there was some just super shitty days, you'll see it this summer, guys on roofs in 100-degree heat or, you're pouring concrete and there's snow on the ground. It just, it's tough. It's hard work.
Yeah.
So I think it all did kind of prepare me. And like I said, I loved it. I thrived. I guess I needed that,
So if there's like one thing that you remember most about basic training, what would that be?
I remember one thing. And like I really remember that first day on that gym floor with my bag, thinking I wanted to go home. And then I had so much fun after that. I was really happy. My wife and my friend, she wasn't my wife at the time, but came down to graduation and stuff, and I was really glad to be done. But I think I just really enjoyed the whole experience.
Yeah.
Not to mention, you lose a bunch of weight, you're in like the best shape of your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, back when we had 6-packs instead of cases.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So at this time, was Leonard Wood the home of the regiment then for the MPs?
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, they'd already moved over there from, I think, Fort McClellan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you do AIT there then?
Yeah, one station unit training, just one, it's like you graduated basic training one night, you went to bed in the same bed, you woke up in the same bed, and you were in AIT type thing.
Okay. So AIT wasn't much different from basic training then,
Not at
was
all.
It? Yeah.
No, same drill sergeant, same people. Yeah, you just kind of rolled right into the next.
So then pretty much everyone that you were in basic training with went to MP school as well then?
Yep.
Okay.
And because we were off cycle from like a summer basic training or AIT, we didn't even have, because you'll have split ops from the guard, right? If you go in the summertime, you might have kids that come in, they weren't kids at the time, but they'll come in their summer months for basic training. The following summer, they do their AIT. But because I was, spring into summer, we just rolled right through.
Okay. So how was AIT for you?
Good. It was good. Yeah, it was, it was a lot, looking back, it was a lot of, they're teaching active duty MPs how to be police, in garrison and things like that. I didn't love it. Not to mention, just growing up, a little bit of trouble with the law. So I did feel, a little out of place.
Yeah.
But overall, good. And I did learn a lot. Stuff but I never did it again either. And we'll get into why. But
Right. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. You have like garrison MPs, you have combat MPs. And I never did anything garrison my whole 11 years as an MP.
Especially in the guard.
Yeah. We were deployed and we were doing basically combat infantry work.
Sure.
Essentially. So yeah, I get it. So you get done, then you come back home after AIT?
Yep. Came back home. So whatever that was, August time frame. And we got our first apartment, my current wife and I, in Fenton. We were there just a few months. I was just working at the time. I'd started doing some painting work for people. I was just kind of like bouncing around, odd job type stuff, just kind of trying to, figure out kind of what I was going to do next and what was going to work out, or how things were going to shake out. And then January 2003, we got the mobilization order, to show up and be at the armory with all your stuff and blah, blah, blah. So, and I was clueless, no clue what I was, it was a, like a call on a Friday, be here Monday type thing at the time. Because there was no notification of sourcing that was a year out or anything like that, right? It was, we ramped up real fast, putting, a lot of soldiers, boots on ground in a relatively short amount of time. And so that we were kind of right at the beginning of the Iraq campaign.
Okay.
So yeah, that was January.
I do want to stop and back up though.
Sure.
We've talked about your girlfriend/wife a couple of times.
Yeah.
How'd you guys meet? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my wife is she's the youngest of I think 7, and she was living with her older sister, going to Eastern Michigan University, and it would be her nephew. I was good friends with her nephews. They're like, we're all the same age. Yeah. And I had went over there for, I don't even remember what I did. I do remember. So Sharon is her sister's name. Had a large tree fall in the yard, and I had agreed to come over and help, cut it up and stuff. And that's when I think I saw her for the first time, and just kind of like, oh, damn. Like, hey, Nick, your hand's kind of hot, man,
Which is a really weird thing to say.
Yeah.
Think about
it. Oh, yeah. It wasn't, I don't think anybody really appreciated it either at first.
I'll bet.
But, yeah, and then we all went to a Kid Rock concert. Things just kind of progressed. We were just, we were talking, we were just really good friends and hanging out and having a good time, and really just kind of slowly progressed and, into what is now, 24-year marriage.
Yeah. So you guys have been together for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since like 99, 2000 time, probably yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. So I want to get back to prior to the deployment, the call up, you had been to drill, correct? Or was this like you hadn't even been to drill yet?
No, I had done a couple.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about like hitting that drill floor for the first time as a fresh out of boot camp.
Yeah, just super confused, right? And again, you're talking about back in like before the explosion of the global war on terror, right?
Right.
Now it looks completely different, right? Because commanders have, you got 39 days to get soldiers, ready to do what an active duty unit trains for 365 days to do. So that was kind of before that. So drill, I remember coming back and just like super excited about what I was going to do. And it wasn't great.
Super let down, right?
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really boring. It was, again, I just thought like, what have I gotten myself into? So that's the thing too, like, as I picked up some side jobs because I was really contemplating, like, I'm just going to go active duty. I really liked what I did there. It was fun. I met a lot of great people. I could do that full time.
Yeah.
And then we got the mobile order. So my wish was answered, I guess.
Right. One way or the other, you're going active duty.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you show up with all your stuff then, right?
Yeah. So my wife and I, we were engaged. I had, we were planning on getting married June of 2003. Mm-hmm. So left in, we were getting ready to leave in January. And we kind of started thinking, because Uncle Sam doesn't really do a great job of recognizing, the fiance, right? It's you're either married or you're not.
Right.
So we went to the Oakland County Courthouse, one day during that week we were in Pontiac. And we got married January 27th, 2003. We got married with the idea that, this is the Guard. We're not going to be gone. I'll be back in 6 months.
Right.
We'll get married this June.
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. Put a deposit down on a place in Clarkston, and it's like I'll be right back. And then September of 2004, something we came back.
Yeah.
We spent about 3 months, maybe just over at Fort McCoy. Mm-hmm. Training for Iraq in like sub-zero temperatures. It's wild when you think about it. Makes perfect sense. But, wild at the time.
Yeah.
And then we got into country April or so, something like that.
So where were you deployed to?
Originally Kuwait.
Okay.
Yep. So we were down there for quite a while. And then, we were at the naval base in Kuwait.
Okay.
For quite a while. And then we went up. It wasn't Buring at the time. They renamed it after that colonel. I think that colonel was killed in the fall. Buring.
Yeah, when I deployed, I went to Camp Buring.
Yeah, so Udari.
Okay.
What it was, I think, before. Maybe we can fact check this before it airs, but I'm pretty certain it was Udari. We went up there, and we started running convoy security from there. Uh-huh. So we stayed in Udari or Buring. And then we would run up as far as, LSA Anaconda.
Yeah.
And then back, staying by up and things like that.
Okay. And that was, how long was that deployment then? You were going a lot.
So because originally it was, while we were there is when, like after we had gotten there, that came the original 12 months boots on ground, right?
Right.
Remember the Army Times with the big thing, 12 months BOG or whatever?
Well, I remember as a commander, it was a big deal when I got to Beering to get that BOG letter, because that's when your 12 months started.
Right.
Because we sent half over first and then the second half. So we couldn't go boots on ground until everybody got there. And it was like...
And then the clock started ticking.
Yeah, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. We had to go hunt everybody down and have this piece of paper signed.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
So 12 months.
That's when that occurred. Yep.
Right.
And then kind of as we were packing up, we were coming home, we were done. We were starting to send stuff off through customs and everything. And then, this 2 or 3, I don't even remember what he was at the time. I just remember, so-and-so wants to come speak to you guys. And looking back, like, you should have known, right? They don't come down to say, like, good job. I mean, that's what they do say, but it was like, hey, we need a little bit more from you. And that's when first Cav was the first one to get extended the 120 days beyond their 12 months.
Yeah.
So we fell under that. And yeah.
How'd that impact the home front for you?
Yeah, I mean, because my wife was kind of expecting us to fly back in. I mean, she was staying at her sister's because she was going to, head down to Metro to see us get back and everything. Yeah. And when I finally had a chance to call her, and she's always been incredible. Like, my wife she's amazing. She really is. She's a special lady. And also, like, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Getting upset's not going to change it.
Yeah, I know we were going to be home tomorrow, but I'm going to be home in about 120 days.
Yeah. Still pretty rough.
Mm-hmm. It's not ideal.
No, not at all.
Yeah. But also, like, you don't have a choice. Like, the plane's not leaving, man. So you can kind of, sit around and pout and cry about it, or, hey, let's just go figure this out.
So talk to me a little bit about your mission there.
Yeah, it varied a lot. We got split up for a while, like by platoon. We were kind of farmed out to do kind of just whatever needed to be done, whether it was like checking vehicles, make sure they were clean before they left customs. And then we had a platoon that went up to Fallujah for a little while. Missoula, just kind of like piecemeal different mission sets, and then the last 6 months was predominantly just the convoy security stuff.
Right.
So, that was cool. I mean, I liked it, until I didn't, right? At first you're like, all right, cool. Like, you're on the road, you're seeing a bunch of different stuff. You're going to all these different places. The time went by quite a bit quicker, because you do, a 2 to 4 day round trip, something like that, and then you'd come back, you'd have a day, a true day off, and then kind of like a recovery day or whatever, go to the gym, eat some ice cream, and then do it again. So it made the time go by pretty fast. And it was good. And then, someone gets hit with an IED, and then we lost Craig Frank, and, that's when it all, was like. So
you were there when Frank was there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. July of 2004, we were still there.
Yeah. Who was your commander at the time? Do you remember?
Mac.
Yeah.
What the hell was his name? He was a Pontiac cop.
Yeah. I could be, because he came
McQuarrie.
in. Yes.
Doug McQuarrie.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And my PL was Russ Harden. Mm-hmm. Remember Russ?
I know Russ.
Yeah.
Russ is still around, too.
Russ is still around. Yeah, he's a full bird colonel now.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, also in that unit was, Billy Gribble was in that unit. Command Sergeant Major Gribble. Billy Adrian was in that, who is also, Adrians are the nephews of my wife.
Okay.
But also like my close, some of my closest friends. But so Billy joined the Guard as well. We deployed together. Sergeant Major now. Who else was there? Adam Little, who retired Major. Becky Burkhart at the time ended up being Becky Witt. Was the CSM of the. I don't remember if she was the MP Brigade. Anyways. From the 75th, though, and on that MOB, and then made it to CSM. It was, looking back, it's pretty wild,
Well, it's interesting to, like Hardin as a colonel now because he was always going to get out. He was always alive, had I'm done, but I'm so glad that he stayed in. Like,
he's awesome.
Guys like him.
Yeah, he's awesome. Just
Absolutely.
and it's unreal, like his energy level, and that's another reason I think too why, he was one of the first ones that talked to us, because Mac was, we didn't have I was a corporal at the end. Like, you just don't deal with a commander that often as a corporal, right? But your PL's there with everything, and just I think looking back, because I know Russ was disappointed. Shit, he had 2 little kids, just seeing like how he, basically was like, hey, fuck it. You need 120 more days? We'll do it. We gave you 120 more days, and so for me, someone did not have kids at the time, I remember that thinking like, oh, geez, if this guy, can do this and be happy about it, so can we.
Right.
But yeah, I've known Russ for a really, really long time.
Yeah, I still hear stories about him. My XO was Jim Blocker. And
he was just a 210th MP battalion commander.
Yeah.
I think he just came out of command relatively recent.
I think he did. We had lunch a few weeks ago. But
okay.
Yeah, so he talks about Russ. Every time he talks about Russ, I chuckle. Because I'm like, when I was retiring, I know Russ was talking about getting out, but here he is. But no, those...
Yeah, I think he was going to get out before he went to OCS.
Yeah.
Then he went to OCS. Then he was done at that MOB, and then he stuck around. It was like...
He's too good of an example to just leave. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They can't let him go. So... Yeah. So you talk to me a little bit about the if you want to, about the loss of Frank while you were there, because that was close to the end of your deployment, wasn't it? You guys were like ready to come home.
Yeah. So had we came home when we were supposed to, like, that would have never happened.
Right.
And matter of fact, and it's probably not well known, but Craig's father had. And I don't know, maybe you'll have to edit this out because like HIPAA shit, I'm not sure. But his father had like a double bypass open heart surgery type thing. It was in real bad shape. And they were going to let Craig, they were just going to let him go a little bit early from the MOB because we were winding down. It was done. It was send him home a week early. Like, what's the hurt, right? See his father and all that stuff. And he was, he said, nope, I came here with them. I want to stay with them. I want to go home with them. And then, he doesn't,
Right. Yeah.
But, yeah. So.
And a lot of people that I was in the 76th, a lot of people I was in the 76th with knew him. Yeah. He was a very well-known guy. Yep. Everyone seemed to like him.
Yeah. He just got along with everybody. Yeah. Very, very friendly and just, So that one, that was tough because, it was July 19th, when we were home in August. So it was like, even coming home, like the whole world is ready to kind of celebrate and you're just like, you know what I mean? So, looking back, like all that survivor's guilt and all that stuff, like it was pretty heavy. I had a really hard time with it. And
it'll screw you up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
It just didn't seem right, and I understand it, of course. Like,
at some point you have to make peace with it, I think, right?
Yeah. And that's, it's the cost of war, right? It really is. But it doesn't make it any easier to stomach it.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about coming home. And somebody once said, I've heard this quote, that like the hardest part about deployment's not deployment. The hardest part of deployment is coming home. What do you think about that?
Yes. For me, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but the deployment piece, you're basically just, especially at the beginning, I was a team leader at the end. What that was like 2 or 3 guys, you got to make sure they get up in the morning and, they have their shit ready to go on mission, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But really you're just worried about just you that day, When you're hungry, you walk to the chow hall, even when if you are hungry in the middle of the night, a lot of places had the fourth meal or the midnight meal or whatever, but it's always there, right? When you need to do laundry, you put your stuff in a bag, you go drop it off in a tent, and then you go back the next day, you pick it up. You know what I mean? It's real easy in a sense of like, you don't have all the day-to-day shit that we have every day. You don't have. Now, the flip side is that you could be driving and get hit with an IED or take fire or whatever. But the mission is very clear. Your objectives are very clear. The hierarchy is very clear. Everyone you deal with, it's very defined and structured and rigid. And so in that sense, it's easy. And you come home, and especially for guys who come home and they're trying to, reintegrate with their family, and their wife has been, taking that entire load the entire time. But you come home and you just kind of like, well, I got this, or you know what I mean? And you have to just work through all those things. And we didn't have kids. I can only imagine it's got to be 100 times harder with children. Because it's a lot. It takes a ton to, run a household, if you will, on top of going to work. And then, just those other, those little things all day long. Got to run to the post office and drop this off. I got to stop here, run this errand. I got to pick up dry cleaning. I got to get to the grocery store. I got to drop a check off at the school for the field trip. You know what I mean? It goes on and on and on. That's all on top of, if you're lucky, your 8-hour, work day. That provides all those things. So, the integration piece was, it was much easier on us because it was just the two of us. Yeah. So, yep.
So did you come back to McCoy then? Is your
for a hot minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to get an ID card and some other things.
Yeah, I think we went through like a physical to make sure you were good, which everybody says, if you are struggling with something, then all right, you're going to get moved to this building and the rest of your unit's going to go home. You know what I mean? Like looking back, we were there. I couldn't even tell you, maybe a week or two. Just that demo stuff.
Right.
I don't remember much about it.
Then you come back to Pontiac.
Yep.
And have your ceremony
all the families were there, and that was it was fun seeing everybody. It was cool. You had the police escort down 94 coming back and all that stuff, and again, it was just difficult to enjoy it because it just none of it ever felt right. It just was.
Yeah.
It was tough on everybody. Mac, I'm sure, as a commander or a first sergeant. Kind of your priority one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They sort of own it, right? The whole thing, good, bad, and ugly.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you get home, you see your lovely wife.
Yep.
What happens?
Yeah, we lived with her sister and my brother-in-law in Shelby Township for a little while. When I first got back, I was ready. I didn't want it really anything to do with the military, So I was like, well, I got a job working for a Weir Building Company. He's a contractor in Fenton. Shout out Chris Weir, by the way, he's a good guy. And I did that. We bought our first home. She got pregnant with our son. Yeah, that was the year 2005 was a busy year in that sense. But I did almost within just maybe 3 or 4 months, I could just kind of feel like, I did want to be back, and I wanted to be back in uniform. And so we kind of, debated the active duty stuff. She's a nurse. She was pretty established. And then somehow I learned about, the AGR program, the Active Guard and Reserve program. And so I started applying. I think the first one I applied for was a admin NCO. I can't remember if it was in it was in Taylor. I just don't know if it was the 76th or it might have been like HHC MP Brigade. But I lost that one to Dave Davila, retired E8. Funny story, Dave Davila beat me on several boards throughout my career. Dude was my kryptonite. So
right.
Yeah.
If you saw him walking out when you were walking in, you knew you weren't getting the job.
Yeah,
right?
just man, like I would go on to lose, and you don't always know who you lose to right away, but then you're like, oh man, beat me again, But
yeah.
And then so applied for that, I didn't get it, and then I saw the posting for a recruiter, and like, oh, that that could be fun, and so I applied for that, and I got that. I was in Port Huron, which was tough. It's a long drive from the Flint and Fenton area.
Oh yeah.
But I would just stay out there, and because I did enjoy the job. I liked it a lot. And I was active duty. We were at home in my house, my new baby. At the time, I was a active duty E5, probably the most money we've ever had in our lives, as a matter of fact,
Yeah.
But so I did that. Are we into the career part? Is that or just...
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I want to bring up though, so I did a 4-year recruiting stint, and I loved it. Like, recruiting was the shit. Like, it was great. But I find though there's no fence sitters in recruiting. Either you love it or you hate it.
True story.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So talk to me about that.
So I recruited at a so this was would have been early 2005. Mm-hmm. I went to recruiting school in 2006. It would have been early 2006. Jared Johnson, who he's at the National Home now.
Yeah.
Retired as a captain. My best friend, he was actually my neighbor at recruiting school. That's how I met him. So that was early 2006.
Okay.
And recruiting, it came pretty natural for me. For me, like the money I was making and the benefits and all that stuff, you talk about like a construction background and carrying over. So first of all, I was making more money than I ever made pouring concrete, framing houses, doing any of that stuff with benefits, with the stability of as long as you do a good job and you stay out of trouble, case in point, you can do this for the next 20 years or whatever.
Right.
And so for me, I just felt like such an immense blessing. Like, I'm sitting in a car, I'm going to people's houses at night. I'm not, setting forms in the rain and you know what I mean? Or digging holes or,
They give you a car, a credit card, and you get to hang out with young people. And most of them are pretty motivated.
Yeah, and I was so far from, my boss was in Flint, so he never bothered me. So like complete autonomy. And so I just felt really blessed the whole time.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of it. I did it. Port Huron for a little while. And then our Lapeer recruiter had left. So I moved over to Lapeer. That was much better. It was, about a 35, 40-minute drive as opposed to, about 90 or so.
Right.
And then after a few years, though, I think 3, maybe just shy of 4 years is how long I recruited for. Mm-hmm. By 4. I kind of missed I guess I just kind of missed like being around a little bit more people. I just kind of felt like you can kind of feel like detached. Like you're just kind of out on an island on your own.
Right. You're not really around soldiers. You're around civilians.
Yes.
Yeah, it's different. 100%.
Yep. So an opportunity came available in the headquarters in Lansing, operations and training type stuff. And so I went there and I loved that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely loved that. So I did that for a couple years, met some incredible people there. Jason Rogers at the time. So I was an E6. Jason Rogers was an E7, also retired, lives in DeWitt now. Still stay in touch with him. We had a really good time there. Jimmy Robbins, Command Sergeant Major Robbins, was our supply NCO. And it was such a great team and so much fun. So love that. So from there, this is where I should have taken notes, Bill, but
that's fine.
From there, I went across the street into the G3. I was a training NCO at the JFHQ level. I did that for a little while. I got promoted to E7 in that position. Then I lateraled. I just had this. I thought I wanted to kind of get closer to home, and so readiness NCO position in Corunna opened up at the RSP, not with the 46 or 144. I don't remember when that switch happened.
Well, it used to be there.
Yeah. And I did that, and I didn't like that at all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize they had an RSB in Corunna. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was small, and yeah, I mean, I learned some good things, but it just
wasn't a fit.
No, it wasn't. So ended up back to Lansing, got into like the finance and budget stuff, and I did that. Actually backfilled Jason Rogers.
Yeah.
In that job, that was the time I met Scott Myers. Was our battalion commander. Chuck Hahn came as our operations sergeant major. That was a lot of fun. Do you know General Myers at all?
Oh, I do. We served together.
Okay.
You cannot help but love that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't, even if he says stuff you don't agree with, I don't know what it is about him.
Yeah.
He makes you like him.
We had such a great time.
Yeah. And here's the thing. You had a great time, you got shit done.
Yes.
Like you didn't have a great time at the expense of the mission.
No.
He made the mission fun, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was a blast. He's out there. I mean, we're flying NGB trying to get money for, speedboats on Lake Michigan and parasailing and just crazy shit, but it was so much fun. We did a lot of cool, innovative shit in that time. The GWAT funding faucet was wide open. I mean, it was, legitimately just spend within fiscal law, of course, and then go back, have a plan for more, and get it. And we did that over and over, for about 2 years straight. It was so much fun.
I feel like too with him, someone looking from the outside could go, that seems like a boondoggle, the money that he was spending. But I feel like every dollar he spent did have a purpose.
And there's a bunch of those programs that we started back then, whether it was, we became like the prime, military sponsor for MHSAA. Now, if you still go to like Ford Field for the wrestling finals, they're using our mats. We're advertising, just this wonderful partnership with MHSAA. We started that back then. Warrior Fit, basically like a recruiter shows up with a trailer and all this CrossFit equipment, sets it up on a gym floor, round robin circuit training stuff, right? We bought all that stuff in that time, still used today. We never got the speedboat or any of that. And there's some wild stuff too, right? Mm-hmm. We started the Educator Summit. So the first one, it was wild. We went up and held it at the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island. We were all these teachers and educators and, kind of wined and dined them and told them like all the benefits of National Guard service, also while giving them this incredible experience on Mackinac Island. And it was just awesome. Still do educator summits to this day. Now they've changed quite a bit because, you can't be putting everybody up at the Grand, right? But
no, but it was nice while it lasted.
Yeah. So, but yeah, a lot of those things that, like I said, we started those things, back then. And
let's take a quick break.
Before we continue, we'd like to share a resource that may be helpful to veterans and their families. The Battle Buddy app from vetlifetoday.org is designed to connect veterans with support, resources, and a community that understands their experiences. If you or a veteran you know could benefit from those resources, we encourage you to download the Battle Buddy app and learn more at vetlifetoday.org. Yeah, he did a lot of amazing things for Camp Grayling and for Northern Strike and all those things. Yeah,
everywhere he's been.
Yeah. I mean, so I feel like you have two kinds of officers, right? You have the ones who everywhere they've been, they've been there for not good reasons. And guys like him who everywhere they've been, they leave it way better than they ever found.
Yeah. That's definitely how a majority of them are remembered, because the ones who just, come in and kind of remain status quo, they do their time and kind of move on and
do their thing, and that's it.
And there's nothing wrong with that either. But you tend to not remember those ones.
Right. Right. So where did you go from there then?
From there, I slid over, working directly for Sergeant, Sergeant Major Hahn at the time. I was his ops NCO. I did that for a little while. Then I knew I wanted to be a first sergeant, and I hadn't been in like a true leadership role in quite some time.
Right.
So I left the headquarters. I went down to the Taylor, Detroit area, and I was a recruiting team leader there at a team of 10 or 12 guys down there. I did that next. I don't remember how long I was there. It wasn't a really long time. I ended up coming out number 1 on the EPL, and got. I was selected for the RSP first sergeant position, so the one that all the detachments, reported to at the headquarters.
Yeah.
So that's how I made E8. So I was in RSP. That was a real short time, because the E8 ops NCO at the time. Just had a little bit more experience doing other things, not so much an operator. And not to brag, but I do feel like I was a pretty fucking good operator.
Yeah.
When it comes to planning, coordinating, executing, all that kind of stuff. So anyways, they flipped us, and they put me as the battalion ops NCO as an E8 there. Did that for a little while. Then I slid over to. I kind of followed Chuck. So Chuck Hahn went on to be the brigade operations sergeant major for the 272nd, the regional support group in Lansing.
Yeah.
And I came over and worked as the brigade training NCO for him, which was fun. They were, at the time, there was no, I don't remember what happened to him. I think he went to MLC or something, got jammed up on some alcohol stuff. So they removed him from his first sergeant position, and it takes so long to get those filled sometimes. While I was a training NCO, I was also got to be the HHC first sergeant for the 272nd, which was a lot of fun. I met incredible people there. So again, Jimmy Robbins was there, but he was the supply, the 4 sergeant major there in the group. Ben Fair, Mallory Stevens was my first company commander, and still love Mal. Also DeWitt, her and Adam, that'd be another one maybe for you to interview. But she was the commander, and then Ben Ferris took over for her. And matter of fact, I was just at Ben's wedding, last fall, and so I still stay in touch with him. And we had a great time. I was there through really that first full year of the COVID operations. COVID lasted more than a year, but spring of 2020. We had, we set up a couple of assembly areas and hotels, and we were our group was at the Crown here in Lansing. And that was a weird time, crazy time, the world being shut down and everything. But we would, we'd work really long days. Then the weekends would come on Saturday night, and we'd all get together and play cards, and it ended up being, that was a really fun time, So Myers also was the brigade commander. So I guess in a sense I followed him and Hahn over to the 272nd. But that was, we made the best of that mission too. And then, so then after that, my good friend Jeff Kirschwing had become the CSM of the recruiting battalion. And he called me and he's like, hey, what's your thoughts on attending, the academy, Sergeant Major's Academy? I was like, oh, I'd love to, and he's like, well, I need you back here too, it's kind of, because people aren't going to look at it right if I send somebody who's not in my battalion to the Sergeant Major Academy. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I applied and came back to be the state retention NCO.
That's a tough job.
That was pretty fun. So
I feel like no matter how tough the job is, you're gonna find I feel like you just have this great attitude.
yeah, it's
I guess the best way to say it.
yeah, and by then, yeah, how can I put this? Everything I've ever done really has kind of been like what you make of it.
Yeah.
Even the crappiest, shittiest times, when you look back, you're like, but yeah, man, that, like that was us. We did that. And that, you know what I mean? And you look back at it kind of fondly because you made the best of it while you were there, right? It's taken me years of therapy and years of experience, to understand there's things you can control in this world, but man, it's real fucking limited.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah. There is a lot of things that will happen that you can't control. And the quicker you can learn to, here's a good story. So when I was after that, went to the academy, I became the ops sergeant major in the recruiting battalion. Mm-hmm. And one of the first trainings that I'd ever went to out of state with like our region, there was a guy there, and I can't remember his name because we used to stay in touch. Speaker, former SEAL, but his whole thing was this: E plus R equals O. So event plus your response equals the outcome. So you can't control an event most of the time. You can't control what somebody else does, what somebody else says, what actions occur. You simply can't. How you respond to that, you can always control. You always have 100% control in how you respond to any event. And that's what can change an outcome for you. Right. And so that, like hearing him put it that way, it kind of like really, stuck, and kind of like it just simplified what I think most of us already in some way, shape, or form, that you can't control everything. Right. And you're in control of your own emotions. But to simplify it to something that's just as easy as, you want to affect an outcome, change how you respond. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. No, much easier to just say it than it is to in practice. You know what I mean? Yeah. But, so yeah, I've just kind of, I felt that way, for a long time. Control what you can control, and the things you can't, you got to find a way to.
Yeah. It's just understanding the things that you can't control, right? Like, you have to know what you can and can't control. Mm-hmm. That's the bottom line.
So social media for me. So I stay off the vast majority of time now. But I would find myself, looking at someone's posts or their comments, and like you get like so charged emotionally, like, mm-hmm. Like this anger, and it might be somebody that you never even met. Right. Right. And then it's like, what am I doing? What? Like, you know what I mean? This, like, John Smith of whatever and his opinion, like,
how does that even impact me, right?
Why? Why in the world am I letting that, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it just, So, again, in practice, much more difficult than in theory, I guess, but.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So where do you go from Ops Sergeant Major?
Yeah, okay. So Ops Sergeant Major, that's actually at the same time, Jared Johnson was the Bravo Company commander. Mm-hmm. This is a good story too. So the college sports NIL laws were changing and evolving at the time. And Jared called me. I'll never forget. It was in the halftime of San Francisco, Dallas, Sunday night football game. Yeah. And he's like, "Hey, I got an idea. I think we can use this change to NIL. I think we can use this to do some things with the University of Michigan football team and really expand our social media reach." And you know what I mean? And yeah. I don't know how well you know Jared, but he's Like he's by far the most creative person that I've ever met in my life, to the point where like at times it's just, I felt like my only job was to like keep him reined in a little bit, but also just help him like execute what he, his plan. So, and we did. So we ended up, it was a battle and it was hard, and we had, every step of the way, somebody was telling us, no, we couldn't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it. But we did. So we brought the entire University of Michigan football team to Grand Ledge, put them all in helicopters, showed them around, flew them all. It was great. And it did, so when you look at social media in the sense of like the impressions and everything generated, and it was really cool. But that was Jared's baby, that I just helped kind of, but that was a big part of my role, as the Ops Sergeant Major. That was a big project.
It's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was so much fun. It was cool. So, so then after Ops Sergeant Major, then my buddy Sean Freese, he was the current CSM when I was the Ops Sergeant Major. He retired, and I didn't ever think I wanted to be the CSM of the recruiting battalion, but it ended up, that was the best job I ever had. Mm-hmm. It really was. It was the most exhausting, I think. My wife and I were just talking about it last weekend. Because, the whole thing, like the last 4 years of my career were just really tiring and exhausting, and, emotionally, and, it's just long days, many days a week. And again, my wife, she's just the best. Yeah. Like I only had to ever focus on, like what I was doing at the time. And like I deeply cared about the recruiting battalion. I spent so much time there, and the recruiting battalion tends to, some people kind of look at it and they, you hear these things like, oh, recruiters are lazy, or we don't ever see them in the office. First of all, if a recruiter's in the office, they're not out doing their job. That's number one. So let's stop with I haven't seen my recruiter today. Shut up, But also, just so many good people. And, I just always I was constantly like, what can I do to improve the organization, to make this better? How do we change this culture? And, because recruiting tends to have like this toxicity to it, in the sense of like, well, if you don't put anybody in the guard this month, you're going to get fired. Right. Right.
What have you done for me lately?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And, I did everything I could to change that, and, make it a destination for soldiers. Right. Yeah. I wanted the E6 training NCO, and then, in the rifle company, I wanted him to, come back after a MOB and come into recruiting, like do a couple years here. It's hard, it's long hours and all that stuff too, but you're going to come home almost every night, mm-hmm. right? You're not going to be, sleeping on a cot, and there's no field stuff, right? But come see what it's like. And I truly believe that we did start changing some of that stuff. So, matter of fact, Friday, one of the guys who had come, Joel Parham, just got promoted to E7. He came to us from the 126. Uh-huh. And he's still here, a few years later, getting promoted to E7. But incredible infantryman, incredible soldier, incredible NCO. 10 years ago, not sure that guy would have come to recruiting, right? Because, fuck that.
Yeah, because he's an infantryman.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
Yep. And now, so I'm not saying it was me. It was not me. But those are the things that we did want to accomplish, that we were able to.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that bringing in folks who come off of mobilization into recruiting, is there something special you think they bring to recruiting? Like something that maybe someone who's not deployed, and I don't want to get into that whole argument, but someone who's not deployed doesn't bring into recruiting?
Yeah, you have experience and perspectives and things like that, right? For me, it was more about bridging the gap between the recruiting battalion and MTO units.
Yeah.
How do we all work together? You know what I mean? Because like, hey, commander, believe it or not, you really need your recruiter. You know, now the recruiter works for us, he's ours, but like, that's your guy. And if you as a commander don't trust the soldiers that the recruiting battalion has provided to fill your unit, like, we're going to be in trouble. You know, so for me, it was just more kind of bridging that. And the more we can kind of bring people in and out and back and forth, like kind of like I did in a way, right? I was outside of recruiting and back in, and then out over here and then back in. And first, it introduces you to, you know, so many more people. And, you know, I used to joke, like, I don't really know how to do anything, but I promise you I know who to get a hold of to get it done.
That's the key.
Yes.
You don't have to know everything, right?
No.
You just have to know the right
But
people.
I know who can do it, where they are, how to get a hold of them. And hopefully any previous interaction I had with them was a really positive one. You know what I mean? And they're looking forward to helping me. And now I do believe that was the case, you know, 99% of that time.
Yeah.
You know, I had my hiccups with plenty of people, but
I think that's a question I ask a lot of people, like, who we know each other kind of peripherally, right? Like, we know each other's names from the military. First question I always ask is, was I mean to you? Like, because I want to know up front, like, did I not treat you correctly when I knew you back then?
Yeah.
And most of the time the answer is no, you were fine. But, you know, I know that I had those instances where I did not treat people the right way. Maybe I had a bad day, maybe I took it out on somebody, but
yeah, you're human.
yeah, you just never know when you run into people who you haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah. So, you know, treat everyone as though you are going to run into them again someday, I think. And I used to tell young recruiters when they would come in, and I'd give them kind of their introductory, you know, here's the things that'll get you jammed up fast, right? You go, you know, texting or flirting with some high school girl or something like that, or cheat on your wife, you're going to be done here.
Yeah.
You know, or do this, you're going to be done. But also just remember, everybody you come across, even the soldiers you put in, you know, one of the people I enlisted when I was in Lapeer back in, had to have been like, you know, 2006, 2007, Jermaine Barnes. Jermaine Barnes ended up, you know, making E8 in the battalion, then went to OCS. He's a company commander in the battalion as I was a CSM, and, you know, great close friend of mine, somebody I, you know, have a lot of admiration and respect for. Had I done him dirty when I was enlisting him or whatever, you wouldn't forget that, right?
No,
But so just everyone you run into, you know, treat them with dignity and respect. And if you can help them, you do it. And because one day, especially I think like in the Michigan Army National Guard, it's big in a sense, there's, you know, 8,000, give or take. But it's still a small community, you know, and I might not know you personally, but I know 20 people that also know you. And
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could probably sit here and compare names, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So you were command sergeant major for 4 years, and then that's the position you retired out of?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I was a sergeant major total for 4 years.
Got you.
But
Okay.
couple as the op sergeant major, and then just a couple as a CSM.
Okay. So talk to me about the last time you put the uniform on, knowing that it was the last time you were going to put the uniform on, like as a soldier.
Yeah. Yeah, it was hard. I would say like even like the first few weeks was pretty tough. You hear about it all. Like I knew it was coming, right? Like people would say, you know, when you retire, your phone's going to stop ringing. Nobody's going to be reaching out. And also too, I was pretty ready for that. Like I was, you know.
You thought you were anyway, right?
Yeah. Well, just the trouble sense, right? You deal with, as a CSM, you do have to deal with some of the outliers of people getting in trouble, and that was always tough. But yeah, I did. You know, it was really hard at first. Yeah, but you know, for me, looking back, like I didn't leave anything for me when I was, you know, especially as a CSM.
Yeah.
Like I truly look back and it's like I'm sure I could have done more. There's always more you could do. But I was, you know, I was tired.
Felt like you left it all out on the field.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, my family had just kind of stood around with, especially my wife,
Right.
she just kind of like standing around, just kind of waiting for it to be over. And so, yeah, the transition was more like kind of closing that chapter and then like opening a new, right? And, matter of fact, my wife and I, we get along better now than I think we ever have,
So retirement could go one of two ways, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds like it went well.
It's been awesome.
Yeah.
We went to Puerto Rico with Jared like back in November, and so it's just kind of been this like, it's been good. Yeah. I'm really, really grateful. I'm grateful for my time. I met some of the best people in the world, and a lot of them I'll stay in touch with, but most I understand won't, and that's okay, right? I only have bandwidth for a certain amount of shit anyways,
That's true.
So for me, like this next chapter is more, more focused on just kind of like being that person for my wife that like she was to me for the last 25 years,
Yeah.
And then in my kids too, right? My son plays football at Adrian. And so, Saturdays in the fall, like I'm going there, and I'm not going to be pulled in any other direction. Like that's where I'm going to be. And eventually I'm going to be a grandfather, God willing, and I'll crush that. So I've just looked at it as like that chapter came to a close, and this is a new.
Yeah.
So, but it was weird for a little while. I kind of just like disappeared, just stayed to myself. I didn't answer calls from anybody for, a couple weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you do have to at some point take that time for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I also got really bored too. Like I made it 16 days before I started working here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can understand. And for the people listening, right, you've only been retired for a very short period of time. So
yeah, I started transitional leave mid-September, and I was out the end of December. I started in this position on 1 October or 30, something like that, but beginning of October, yeah.
So that's also the beauty of having been in the military. You retire at a fairly young age.
Yes.
And so there's all these other things that you can go do now. Mm-hmm. So all that being said, what do you think the next chapter kind of holds for you? So you're working here for Tom Barrett, correct?
Yes.
And
So this came about, Keith had reached out. He heard I was transitioning. I knew he was going to reach out because I had talked to Jared, and I told Jared, like, you're batshit if you think I'm going to go. Like, and I'll be the first to admit, like, I am not a politician, right? Especially 25 years in the military, you really, you can't be, in a sense that you've got everybody who's working with you and for you and around you, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you respect everyone's opinions. It's just, you're very apolitical, right? So but this, came in, talked to Keith, this is the official side, so it is much different than like the campaign side. I don't have anything to do with any of that stuff. This side is it's all about helping people, whether it's VA cases or DOD or even just representing the congressman somewhere. Doesn't matter. I don't ask people how they voted before I, pick up the phone and help them navigate a VA problem.
Right. So it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at all. So, in a sense, not being a politician is probably perfect for the job.
So through all this is kind of interesting to me, right? So your mom was a nurse.
Yep.
You've really...
My wife is too.
Your wife's a nurse. Yeah. You've lived a life of service really through the military, and here you are again serving the constituency, helping them with their military issues and the VA claims, things like that. So I can kind of see that you have this gift for providing service to people.
We did. My wife and I both do. So, yes, to answer your question, I do like that. Mm-hmm. If there's anything I can do to make someone's day a little bit better or help them navigate something, I do. My wife, so she does home nursing in the Flint area, and that has its own challenges, and some of the less fortunate people that she's trying to work with and help. And she'll go into a house with no furniture and no food, and she's my wife, she's the most amazing person, most amazing, kind, big-hearted person you've ever met. Maybe next, like her, and then my daughter. Honestly, they're very like-minded like that. Yeah. So whether we're like refinishing furniture to give to somebody, or she's taking them to Walmart to put some food on their shelves, or just whatever. I mean, everything, from little stuff to whatever we can do, to help. So yeah, I do enjoy it.
Well, good. Now, you mentioned your daughter as well. So you have 2 children?
I do. So Carson, my son, is 20. He's a sophomore at Adrian College. And then my daughter, she's 16. Be 17 real soon, like in a month, May 5th. She's a junior at Powers in Flint.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maintaining that tradition of being in the Flint area, for sure. All right. Well, we have talked about a ton of stuff today, Dave. We've covered a lot in a very short period of time. I really just have one last question left to ask you, and that is, someone's going to be listening to this or watching this 100 years from now, right? What would you like them to take away from this conversation, and also just from the way you lived your life?
So I guess just one piece of advice, especially when you're looking at, positions of leadership and things like that. I think empathy sometimes is a little bit overlooked. And when I say empathy, I don't mean letting people slide when they make mistakes. When people make mistakes, I do believe there needs to be a level of accountability and things like that. What I will say is people are human. People, very good people do very dumb things, right? One lapse in judgment or one bad moment doesn't need to define you or maybe the soldiers you lead, right? So I always, try to just before but I guess just try to see things from their perspective, and then also help them kind of through that shitty spot, right? Yeah. So like you're watching little kids play baseball or whatever, right? They're 12 years old. The shortstop makes an error. There's nobody on that field who feels worse about missing that ground ball than that 12-year-old does, right? But yet you still hear people, you got to keep your glove down, or you got to make a better, right? Yeah, they know. Right. They know. And that doesn't change as you get older, right? You make a mistake, you know what you did. And I'm not saying skirt the accountability piece, but hold them accountable, help them learn from it, help them grow, help them through it, and ultimately use it as an opportunity to get better, and then maybe help somebody else. But yeah, I guess if I had one thing, mistakes will be made. Bad judgment is human nature. Bad decisions and bad choices are just something that, that we do and that happens. Yeah. How do you learn from it? How do you grow from it? How do you become better and never repeat that again? And if you're in the leadership position, how do you coach, counsel, mentor someone through something like that as well? So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for taking time out of your busy day to sit and talk with us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Bill.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Veterans Archives podcast and for helping us honor the service and sacrifice of our nation's veterans. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with others so more people can hear these important stories. To learn more about our mission, watch additional veteran interviews, or find out how to record a veteran story, please visit veteransarchives.org. And if you or a veteran you know needs support or resources, we encourage you to download the Battle Buddy app from vetlifetoday.org. You can also hear Veterans Archives on Reads Across America Radio every Thursday at 5 p.m.